Hi guys, hope everyone's really well. I know I said the last one was the last one before Christmas, but this one is now the last one before Christmas because I finished another couple of boards and I've come to ask you guys a question. Are you a bit like me? Are you hanging out in your 90s Rip Curl Surfer Dudes t-shirt still? Getting a little bit of extra on the belly, getting too lazy to shave, a few bald spots appearing here and there. You don't quite understand the whole TikTok generation with a million people watching chicks shaking their booties, and you don't understand why hipsters would spend hundreds of dollars trying to look like they're wearing the grandma's hand-me-downs. You're probably having a mid-length crisis. So this video is going to be all about mid-lengths basically. So if you're interested in mid-lengths and eggs, if you go back to some of my older videos, there's some video work of my piggies, which are they're mid-lengths basically as well, and that'll give you some of that same backstory about the mid-lengths and what they are and why people have them and how they differ and what the features are in them. I'm going to go over that again quickly, so hopefully I'll cover that in this video. So yeah, this one's 6'10" and 21 5/8 and 2 3/4, and this one is 6'4", 22 wide nearly and 2 3/4. Really happy with these. People would probably argue that that's almost a bit too small for a mid-length, and people would probably be alright with this one. It's just probably a bit of extra rocker maybe on some mid-lengths. So let's get into the mid-length definition now. It's a bit like there's kind of a purist definition of mid-length. So in terms of the length, anything that's between like a 6'8" and maybe a 7'8", they would all be classed as mid-lengths because they're in the middle of the lengths between a short board and a long board. But there's lots of boards inside those lengths that don't fall into that category. There'd be guns, there'd be what you call a big guy short board, there would be minimals, there would be learner boards, there would be foamies, you know. So basically the purist is the purist, or the industry or the people or the surfers and everyone else are trying to educate and suggest that the mid-lengths should be a throwback to the boards of the sort of 70s, but with some modern features. So really mid-length's all about it's all about getting a glide and a flow and a soul in the surfing like they used to have, and still putting some more modern features in that. So I'm going to talk you guys through what I believe are some of the features that make a good mid-length, because it's really difficult to crack that balance, because if you go to the one extreme, you're basically ending up with a big guy shortboard, and then if you go to the opposite end of the scale, you're going to end up with like a real clunky or very specialist board that is like a, you know, it's not for everyone. It's more of a specialist board, and it takes a lot of riding. Maybe it's like a hull bottom, and it's got really nice, they say they have really nice feels, but they need a certain wave and a certain riding style. So the mid-length is basically it should and can be everything to everyone these days. Basically, it's a board in the middle of the sizes. It isn't as hard to ride, or doesn't take as experienced a rider as a short board. And if you don't want to ride a long board, you're still getting all the extra paddle power and glide and flow that you would like from that extra long rail length of a longboard. And obviously you got the stability and everything else pumped into it. So yeah, let's go through what I believe the features are that make a good mid-length. So the main things that I believe make a good mid-length are the template. Most mid-lengths will have a reasonably wide nose, and reasonably wide in the middle, and reasonably wide in the tail. That's one of the keys. Now this one in particular, I deliberately made this board for me it's almost like a step up mid-length. So we really don't get big or powerful or hollow waves. So this to me is a board for here when it's overhead high, and overhead high here is probably, we get 4 to 5 foot. If it's 6 foot, it's very unusual. So like, you know, head and a half is big for here. So I wanted to have a board it's narrow enough in the nose and tail to grip and duck dive quite well, but it's also still going to carry some of that glide and fun of a mid-length. So yeah, so one of the big things is the outline. This would still count as an outline, but this is probably a little bit more pulled in the nose and the tail than a lot of mid-lengths would be. And then I believe the second thing is the rocker. So this is a bit more rocker than perhaps you'll see in a lot of the mid-lengths, but it's still fine. It's still like a very mid-lengthy rocker. You'll see quite a reasonably flat tail rocker and a reasonably flat nose rocker. So that's number 2. Number 3, I would say, is probably the concaves that are in the board. So I'll show you these in detail, but basically a lot of the modern mid-lengths will probably be running a V all the way through the board. So if you had the board, if you're looking at the board the same way as this, the bottom of the board is V'd out all the way through it. So it really helps it to rock rail to rail. So if you're thinking about the board in the water, this V's going to allow you to tip from side to side easily. So that negates some of the other features that make it a mid-length, like the flat rocker and some of the other things like that. So yeah, most of the ones I've seen are running a V all the way through, and then from about the halfway or forward, that V's got a double inside it. So you've basically got a concave each side of a V panel, and that seems to give a real glide and cruise to the boards. The other elements are things like fin setup. They're generally probably going to go for what they call a 2+1, which is a single fin in the box and then 2 side bites. You can have bigger side bites and a smaller back fin. Not bigger than the, sorry, not smaller than the side bites, but a smaller back fin. So you would probably have like a 6 or a 6.5 single box fin, and then you would probably stick anything from a small side bite up to a medium quad, and then even maybe up to just a normal medium side fin, and then you could go to like the bigger slider box fin with some really small side bites, or just no side bites as a single fin. So there's kind of a range within that you can use. Then obviously you can go for your quad fin setup as well. I was very lucky, and some guys in New Zealand helped me out with fin position, so I actually realized that I could have a 2+1 setup and still run a quad without really sacrificing much. I think I just moved the cluster up probably 5 or 10 mil more than I usually would. So that was pretty cool, because I wanted to have the options. I did think about having a twin fin, but then the twins are usually twins with channels, and I think the channels generally work better in better waves, plus they're hard for inexperienced shapers to do a good job of, so I didn't really want to venture into channels. And when I've ridden channel bottoms, I really think they need a good wave to get the water flowing through the channels. So yeah, so you've got those elements, and then the rails are probably, on a mid-length, the rails are also probably going to be a little bit fuller, a little bit rounder, and we're going to put like a nice, they're going to put a nice amount of tuck up in the front, so you've kind of got a little bit more of a rounded rail. Like these are still a down rail and still a sharp edge at the back, and still fairly performance for a big size rail, but we just want it to be smooth and rounded and no edges to catch. We're not looking for razor sharp performance and banging it off the lip like a big guy shortboard. We're looking to do smooth arcing turns. So yeah, you've got the outline, you've got the rocker, you've got the bottom concaves, and you've got the fin setup, and that's what makes your mid-length a mid-length basically, to me. Like I say, if you go too far with the rocker, if this had a lot of tail rocker and a lot of nose rocker and a really narrow nose, and it was your normal shortboard concave, you're basically going to end up with a big guy shortboard that you're going to have to ride hard to get in good waves to get the best out of it. This is made to make up for those waves not being so good, or your ability not being so good. So that's what I believe makes a good mid-length, and that hopefully will help you spot them. Ones that I really like at the minute, I checked these out before I made this. One is the CI Mid is an excellent board. The Lost Smooth Operator is a really nice board. That's a little bit more lent towards the big guy shortboard end, but it's not really, because it's quite different from their crowd killer. The crowd killer is like the big guy shortboard, whereas this is the mid-length, and it's just designed to ride in a different way. And then there's some really good ones out of the UK. I think Ben Skinner's just done one. I love his longboard, so that's probably a great board. There's like the Mark Phipps Bad Egg. There's what's the other one? There's a couple of UK shapers that are doing really good mids as well. So yeah, that's what I believe is a mid and what makes a good mid. I'll just give you a quick talk through these two boards and then show you the concaves in a bit more detail and how I believe they help these boards become a mid-length and ride like a mid-length. And yeah, if you're looking for one, that's what you should be looking out for if you want this ride. So as I say, this one itself, my aim was to make a bit of a sort of step up from around here, as I've said. So it's a reasonably normal width for me, like 21 5/8. So I would be happy with 22. I've got my Piggy's like 22 and a bit. That's fine. I've just pulled the nose in a little bit more and pulled the tail in a little bit more than what I would usually go for. Also given it a little bit more rocker than I'd usually go for if it was just going for a pure mid, but it's still not a crazy rocker. And as you see, the tail's not massively rockered. We've got this fin setup that's going to allow me to go single fin, quad, 2+1, and as I say, the concaves with that V and V double are just going to give me that nice rail to rail feeling, and they're going to negate a bit of the flat rocker and add some speed back to it with the double concave, and it just has a different feel. It has a more glidey feel than the new standard shortboard style single double V, basically. This is my usual construction. It's a PU blank with normal fiberglass cloth and epoxy bioresin. The weight is quite nice because that's another thing with mid-lengths. They're usually glassed. They wouldn't be glassed like your performance shortboard because that's not what they're for. They're more of a flowing momentum based board, so it's not unusual to see them with a heavier glass job or a nice tinted glass job. I'm stoked with this tint. I did it's probably one of my first color jobs that's come out like really deep and true. Like I actually put quite a lot of pigment in this one. I was a bit braver with the pigment amount, so I think it's really come out well. I'm stoked with it. Obviously it's a cut lap finish, which takes a bit more work. You have to tape it off and do the cut lap, and this was just a 50-50 mix of red and orange, although it's still at the very red end, and yeah, they look amazing. I'll put some build pictures up at the end, but they look absolutely incredible when they're fresh off the hot coat, because you've got all that wet shiny resin on them, and they look incredible. But to get that same shine back, I'd probably have to either polish it for hours or stick an actual PU style gloss coat on the top to get that. So I've just gone back to the matte, but you know, still got that nice color depth. Little bit of beaky pop in the nose. I didn't want to take the nose down too much, and as I say, you know, these rails put nice bit of tuck on there, so it's just forgiving and rolls from side to side and pretty cruisy. But yeah, like I say, this is I call this a kind of a mid step. It's kind of like a mid step up across between the two, but it's only a step up for our local ways. Like most people wouldn't even consider this as a step up, but when you do go to this length and this kind of board, although it's not modern and performance, the rail length and the bottom contours and this fin setup with a nice grippy single fin, you could ride quite big waves in it, as long as they're big rolly waves and not roaringly hollow waves that would need like a proper step up like you would at Pipeline. So yeah, that's that one, 610, and I'll show you around blue, and then we'll go over the bottom contours. So this is a blue one. I just sanded this up yesterday, so it's fresh and ready to go. Again, really stoked with this colour. It's got a really nice colour depth. You've got that cut lap going around there, and then you've got a nice fin patch going there, and then obviously it's just a bit lighter in colour there where it's the single layer, and then when you got the double layer, you get this nice colour contrast. So that's a cut lap and how the cut lap comes out for you. So yeah, this board, technically people would probably say this isn't quite a mid-length because it's 6'4", so it's kind of, I guess it's almost a blend of a bit of a fishy mid-length nose and then a bit of an all-rounder mid-length tail, but in a shorter package. So it's like this one's 6'4", nearly 22 wide and 2 3/4, so it's like kind of sticking the mid-length principle into a slightly shorter package. And you do get differences in the feel. Like this started, I had a Rob Machado Creeper a long time ago, and that was a Firewire one, and that had the same long V double going all the way through from the middle, and just had a really cruisy, glidey feel to it, and it felt like a lot bigger board, felt like a lot longer board than it was. I actually thought, oh, this would be quite nice as a single fin. So yeah, that sort of switched me on to how those concaves ride differently when you've got that long V double going through them, and especially if you change the fin setup and you put a bit more roll in some of the rails and make them a bit fuller and make it a little bit, just makes a glidier board basically if you've got a slow wave and that's what you're after. So yeah, this one's a nice and flat rocker. This basically came out of a fish blank. Nice full deck. So again, I've just gone a little bit beaky in the nose, but it's not it's not a big fat rounded nose. It's still a fishy hybrid kind of nose. Carried a reasonable bit of foil through the nose and then sort of finned it out in the tail. Yeah, and this one's come up really good. I'm really happy with both of these boards. Also on the mid lengths, I tend to leave the hard edge a little bit further up and a little bit longer, so it takes a little bit longer for the hard edge to break into a more rounded edge in the board, and that's because the fins are slightly further up, and I think it just suits that kind of rail break differently. And then you've also got the rounded pintail or the round tail, which again is smoother and grips the wall of the wave and holds onto the water longer through the turn. So all these things stack up to glide and longer turns and easy wave catching and speed when you're on the wave, and keeps the effort down. And the other thing with the concaves is you'll find it, which is good for most people, most average surfers, because it's a long V double, you can turn it from a lot further up the board. So if you're not like right over the back fin, like you'd probably ideally need to be on a performance board, if you're up here, this board will still follow you and turn nicely because of those concaves. It's all that V is designed to tip over really easily and negate some of the flat rocker and the fuller rails and all those other features that you put in with a mid length. So yeah, that's probably a fairly long spiel. I will come round and show you the bottom contours on these two. As I say, most mid lengths you'll see pretty much a nose to tail V on a lot of them, and then there'll be a double inside the V through the back generally to give it the speed and lift. But you'll also see a bit of a blend, which is what I've done with these, where you've got a single concave running through here and then it goes into a V with a double. So you got like a double inside it and then the V going off to the tail. So that's kind of combining a bit of short board and a bit of mid length, and that seems to work quite nicely as well. Like I say, the CI mid is V'd all the way through with a double bar concave, and then the Lost smooth operator is a bit more like these two. It's got a bit of single going through there and then into a V double from, like, you know, probably just a bit back from the halfway point. Yeah, and that one rides great. I took it out the other night and it's grips into the wall. The red one grips into walls nicely. Really looking forward to getting this out, and it's quite nice to explore that 2+1 fin setup in not longboards. I think it all adds to the mid-length feel. So yeah, I'll come around and show you the concaves. So we've gone for the red one on the concaves. I think that's just a bit more of a true representation of a mid-length, whereas the blue's a little bit more of a hybrid between the two. So as I say, on the CIs and other boards, you'd just be seeing a V all the way through here. But what I've done is I've just put a little bit of a single from where the nose starts kicking and the rocker. So basically where you're paddling, the single should be picking up water, and it's pretty subtle. You'll see the single. Just about see the single up there. You might even be struggling to see it, but yeah, there's just a single through this area here. And then when I get off to once we start getting off towards the halfway line, so basically the midpoint back, see we're starting to get the V there already, and then that V just increases as it goes through. It should be at its deepest ideally through the fin boxes, and you'll start to see that there's a double concave. So there's a concave in each side of that V panel, if that makes sense to you. So you probably see that now. And then we're getting quite aggressive with that V. So this plus those double concaves, one each side, is a lot of what makes this roll side to side easily and feel glidey and have quite a different feel. So you see there's quite a lot of V in there, and you should be able to see those. You should be able to definitely see those double concave panels there, and then that's just mellows out a little bit as it gets through the tail, but there's quite a bit of V in there. So basically V and double, getting deepest about where your fins are going to be, and then that just mellows out a little bit, and we get to the midpoint, it's still got V in it, and then that just transfers into just a really subtle single just to feed that water in from the nose, and that's it basically. So thanks for watching, guys, and hope you have a great Christmas. And yeah, that's me till after Christmas. So thanks for watching, and thanks for your support, and have a good time and stay safe. See you soon.